Many are beginning to realize that we chose to be on this planet at this time to engage in an extraordinary opportunity. As we navigate this phase of culmination within the history of the ancient experiment that has been perpetrated upon the human race, it's obvious that we are being deprived of freedoms that restrict our fundamental sovereignty. We are driven to question the nature of the hidden forces that are, and always have been, behind this agenda of total control. The radical nature of this subjugation has driven us to look into the deeper implications of true sovereignty, to a scope of being that takes us far beyond the boundaries of existence within the constricted paradigm of this version of Earth that has been systemically disconnected from the symbiosis of the solar system and is instead functioning in a temporal zone that is calibrated to a sequential binary signaling response pattern that exhausts a supply of energy resulting in entropy and is set on a course of terminal decline. Through experiences that activate states of awareness and expand our levels of perception and consciousness, we are questioning the true capacity of who we are beyond the boundaries and limitations that have been set for us. There is evidence that we are, in fact, beings of magnificent design, and proof of this is surfacing in various areas of study and excavation. We are moving towards discovering a true sentient sovereignty that is reached through the reconnection, activation, and integration of various dormant energy systems within our biology. Messenger systems that ultimately render us able to reach a counter-coherent resonance between our present physicality and our geometrically encoded light-body matrix, enabling access to transcendent realms that resonate with our original blueprint. In the end is the beginning, as the rotting fruit of history expels the new seed of potential. We have now entered a phase in which to recalibrate to the true constant. It is time to break out of the chrysalis and fly free. The following film has been created for this reason. The template Omni Resonance code is an alchemically calibrated holonomic convergence of sound frequencies interacting with the optical resonance created by the light language of geometry and the meaning embedded in language, creating a dynamic attunement equalized across the symbiosis of acoustic and visual stimulus. The synergetic fusion of this code is ciphered to increase and coalesce brain function, to accelerate and synchronize the rhythmic oscillation of electromagnetic activity, coordinating cerebral rhythms, connecting quantum systems through hyperconductivity, invoking multi-dimensional computing that initiates high states of cognitive resonance and memory recall, reinstating the optimum integration between the holographic storage banks of the brain's neural network, initiating maximum intercerebral activity and connectivity, escalating into hyperneuroplasticity, allowing access into areas of the brain that store a level of self-referencing that has been suppressed due to the genetic modification of the human DNA, ultimately creating a holonomic data-sharing hypernexus capable of invigorating a neuron to generate transmitters that quantum metabolize. The potency of this alchemy establishes the most fundamental energy system that animates the human complex and restores the full extent of its bio-computational function, the circuitry system. Circuitry is the delivery network for the energetic nature of the source code that feeds this primary code to all messenger systems, augmenting the interaction between the nervous system with the endocrine system and activating the pituitary hypothalamus pineal complex. It engages with and is informed by the heart as a superlative organ of perception, a complex system of information processing capacities that interacts with the quantum subatomic world, radiating and absorbing energy, engaging and collaborating with wave function. It expands the function of the pranic mechanism as each breath engages the chakra system. All these systems are brought to full cooperative potency by circuitry upload into a nesting of interference waveforms of hypervortex substructures that form the human blueprint, the light-body matrix. A toroidal generator deciphering incoming source data and transmitting cognizant feedback. A vector equilibrium that expresses all forces as equal and balanced. A vortex through which energy forms into matter. A spherical, multi-dimensional light-body vehicle which when fully activated performs through multi-level resonance as a sovereign fractal of the monad, the Mahagaya Tantra of creation, able to access any time or energy level in the universe. Functioning as an MAO inhibitor, the ultimate potency of the Omni Resonance code initiates the restoration of our inherent ability to produce the endogenous compounds that animate the full function of our original blueprint, recalibrating the human holonom to its eternal transcendental identity, to a state of coherent frequency resonance, freeing it to once again access portals into the eternal constant. The making of this film was instigated by two events that occurred in 1989, during the years we spent in Hawaii. At the time, we were living in a small area known as Kapoho, situated on the coastal southeastern tip of the Big Island. The experiences took place on a mountain. Green Mountain is the highest point of the ridge of a caldera. The caldera, covered in a lush rainforest, extended down to and embraced a dark emerald green, ancient freshwater lake, Green Lake, Kawe Opele, many hundreds of feet deep. This piece of paradise was not far from our cabin by the ocean, and we frequently spent time floating on the lake, on a simple bamboo raft, surrounded by the jungle. As above, clouds drifted over the rim of the caldera into a deep turquoise Hawaiian sky. There was rarely anyone there, probably due to the signs on the gate that guarded the entrance to the property. Keep out, no trespassing, and the most severe warning, kapu, meaning forbidden. In time we would understand the full significance of the abundance of these signs. Among all the Hawaiian Islands, the rising sun first touches the tip of this mountain. This was hallowed land. On June 2nd, 2018, the lake was filled by lava that flowed from the eruption of Kilauea volcano 40 miles away. It took a matter of minutes to evaporate the waters of one of Earth's most precious portals. It was and continues to be a devastating loss. When we moved to Kapoho from the north-central area of the island, we were not aware that the mountain and lake were positioned within the bandwidth of the 19.5 Earth meridian. One of the planet's 10 major vortices that creates a dynamic intersection between the surface of this version of Earth and her true self, as she exists within the eternal continuum. This vortex creates a powerful, multi-dimensional threshold. We chose Kapoho as a place of refuge after surfacing from the depths of a lengthy and dangerous initiation. We understood that we had created this ordeal in order to release us from the hypnosis of our conditioning and set us on a path to merge with our invincible selves that existed beyond the mortal lie of this modified version of our mother planet, to bridge the worlds. The initiation entangled us into the corrupt world of legal insanities, and it was helpful to remember the quote by Joseph Campbell. The role of the Orthodox society is to give the mystic his desire. In the Western world, bereft of culturally arranged initiations, we often create our own trials. This one took from us everything we owned, leaving us with everything that mattered, and a different perspective of the reality and the phase of history we had chosen to take part in. Our home in Kapoho was also in the bandwidth of the meridian. Unknowingly, we lived and dreamed in this portal, and soon became exceptionally resonant with the frequency of it. During our time in this sanctuary, the synchronicities that occurred frequently became more and more extraordinary. We experienced an elevated sense of well-being and an expanded sense of perception. Our dreams were vivid and meaningful. It was the perfect place to recuperate and integrate. Although our cabin was little more than a shack, there was a wooden deck from which to dive into a huge pond created by lava, and beyond that was the ocean. We hadn't realized that our time in this little paradise was actually preparing us for another initiation. A particularly impressive series of synchronicities compelled us to visit the caldera. That day we did not enter the lake, but for the first time climbed Green Mountain. I was extremely reluctant to do so, and as it turned out, for good reason. Once again, but on a far more extreme level, the initiation required that we first face a situation that was shocking beyond our wildest imaginings. I felt the periphery of it, my anxiety mounting as each spiral of the path that circled ever higher up the mountain took us deeper into ourselves. The cool green enclosure of the forest held us, and finally we began to fully merge our consciousness with our breath. Releasing patterns of resistance, we surrendered to the knowledge that there was no turning back. The sound of our steps held the march of time and destiny that would divide our lives into before and after. Emerging out of the forest into the clearing of the mountaintop, suddenly all around was lake and sky and ocean glittering in the clear, deep blue Hawaiian day. Our spirits rose with gratitude to be given this stunning panorama, especially when the hawk arrived and circled above us. However, still humming beneath the day was that which we knew we could not escape. We had understood it was going to be a momentous test. However, there was no way we could have imagined what was about to take place. The clearing we stood in was soon to be an arena in which we would battle for consciousness and for our lives. Two events took place on the mountain that day. Both are documented in full in our book, World Bridger, first published in 2007. Both were intrinsic to the Omni Resonance Code. The first event revealed why it was needed. The second elucidated the ultimate transformation the Omni Code would initiate. As we reached the most menacing stage of this terrifying event, we felt ourselves easing into a heightened cognitive state. Time slowed, and the entire spectacle took on a surreal element. Our resonance with this reality and the strange players in this dark drama were being replaced by something we could not yet define. The landscape around us was flowering, transforming into a lustrous, jewel-like vibrancy of light and color. No, this was not some promised heaven. We had not arrived, we had returned. During the following years, as we became familiar with the quantum dynamics involved in the restoration of the full human potential, prior to genetic modification, we understood that the impact of the extreme ordeal we had endured was initiating the resurrection of our full endogenous capacity to metabolize dormant neurotransmitters. The acceleration of this electromagnetic data that sustains and regulates the receptivity of a neuron to the complexity of external input was expanding the bandwidth of cortical networks and thus the range of our cognitive function, ultimately creating an endogenous MAO inhibitor, innate to the true masterpiece of the original human design. Its potency was operating and opening doors of perception to such a degree that we were accessing and translating a wider spectrum of this transcendent realm in full embodiment, rendering us able to interact with it in a state of coherent resonance. There was something familiar about this realm. In the stillness, an echo of endlessness, eternity, I felt it in the ease of my breath. as it tuned my field to the Earth's crystalline core, expanding my capacity to assimilate the source code of the sun that was connecting me into the galactic matrix of light. I sensed its existence could not be measured between birth and death. It was a visual, audible feedback of a transcendent realm. Here in this dimension, every breath was everything. We had returned to our natural state of being. The true alignment of the torsion field structure of the universal holography is eternally in synchronomic motion. A space-time continuum that is not a sequential binary signal response pattern that exhausts a supply of energy resulting in entropy, but a self-generating, self-referencing, self-sustaining, fractally constructing matrix. This was the true constant, the eternal continuum. Instantly, it was clear that the state of perception we were enjoying was connected to the almost transparent sphere of light that surrounded each of us, allowing us to effortlessly attune to this environment as an extension of our ability to translate light into consciousness, consciousness into matter. An astoundingly intricate biocomputational system of codes sharing light data. A hypervortex system that connected a multitude of messenger systems that functioned as holonomic vertices, forming together a self-contained, self-sustained toroidal system. In the 30 years it took to reverse engineer this process of transcendence, we learned through a relentless variety of experiences that the version of Earth we interacted with is a planetary fractal of the monad, the Mahagaya Tantra of creation, as she exists within the eternal continuum, and ourselves as embodying the full extent of our light-body matrix, our immortal blueprint, as a fractal of a hyper-holographic universe. In total morphic resonance with the true Earth, the Sun, the galaxy, the universe, as all is embraced within the eternal constant. It was many hours that seemed to encompass several lifetimes and identities before we began to make our way down the mountain. We had witnessed various timelines as the sun had begun to set. Not everything had been documented in our book Worldbridger. Just enough to grasp the essential aspects that can shine a light of understanding on the foundation upon which a process of transcendence of fear-based reality can be appreciated. The sun was close to the watery horizon as we began our descent down the mountain, pausing only to spontaneously speak a vow of our surrender and commitment to hold this experience as a way-shower to light the years ahead and never to falter no matter what hardships we encounter. Yes, there were questions that were not answered. However, it was bliss and gratitude that consumed us even as we found our way home in the deepening twilight, and as night fell, the shocking aspect of the initial dark event on the mountain concerned us. At the same time, we also appreciated that the experience had and would continue to initiate a deep dive into the origins of humanity and the history and scope of the experiment that had and would continue to be carried out upon the human race. It was very fortunate that we received some well-informed feedback on all that we had experienced on the mountain from an impeccable source, a 7th-generation kahuna by the name of Makua. There was no doubt in his mind or ours that this meeting had been predestined. So great was the heartfelt resonance and connection we shared that Makua adopted us into his family through a ceremony known as Hanai. The synchronistic conditions that brought us together were breathtaking, the details of which are in our book. We had been told there was very little chance we could meet this man. He was a total recluse, and his home address was a secret. However, one night he turned up at our door. The first words he said to us were, "They told me I had to come." Makua was well known as a high chieftain throughout the oceanic world and was the keeper of an extraordinary and possibly unequaled body of historic knowledge of those realms. When we met him, he was still holding ceremonies throughout the Hawaiian Islands. He was familiar with and had interacted with the potency of various sacred sites, experiencing both the light and the shadow these places revealed to him. He also shared his experience and historic knowledge of what we had encountered during the frightening aspects of the first event we had endured on the mountain. He had personally come across these beings and was able to connect their existence to several renowned events that took place in the history of the Hawaiian Islands, and to the reasons why it was forbidden to enter the Green Mountain property. He fully understood why we were compelled to do so and acknowledged our trespass as providing an integral foundation upon which our lives would unfold. He assured us the events were not coincidental, and if we did not take them to be experiences that were hugely significant in terms of our identities and responsibilities, there would be, as he put it, another bigger wave to wake us up. Initiations that would probably be harder to deal with. Makua learned this firsthand, as his Amakua, his animal guide, was a shark that took a huge bite out of his leg, a considerable wound that some years later took his presence from us all within this version of Earth. However, his guardianship over the islands of Hawaii continues, and his presence there strongly felt. We had already realized that the experiences on the mountain were not simply for our benefit, but were to be understood and shared in some format others could interface with. However, Makua gave us greater confidence as he recognized the significance of the events and appreciated the way in which we had embraced and integrated them at our young age. His faith in us was a real honor and a support in the years to come. In striving to reconstruct the solution, it was imperative to understand the problem and to grasp the higher physics of creation. It took 30 years to reverse engineer the event on the mountain, to mine the data that restores the human holonom as a self-constructing, self-sustaining system of photonic resonance, activating the inherent human potential to decipher the meaning of source and to embody the knowledge that you are the source. To restore the masterpiece of the true human prior to genetic modification. To revive it to such a degree that it is possible to experience yourself in a state of transcendental awareness, able to interface with an environment that is in full morphic resonance with the luminous realms in which we as humans were originally intended to function, as sovereign sentient fractals of the Mahagaya Tantra of creation, within the embrace of the true constant, the immortal continuum. The work we began at the beginning of 2022 not only transmuted the linguistic code into its omnipathic form, it also stimulated the mathematical geometric calculations that brought us to the understanding that the Earth resonance geometry creates the counter-resonant geometric field that vibrates with the alchemical potency of the Omni code. All the individual geometries that specifically pertain to the expanding elemental complexity of the individual codes are being used in the Omni code in this film, as these geometries are fractals of the whole human holonon. The Omni Resonance geometry is expressing the totality that reveals the phase information that expresses in this paradigm the interference waveform pattern of multi-loopback streams of electromagnetic information, the matrix of the universal holography. Each sphere is a hyper-holographic electromagnetic information system. The 16th code aligns the oscillation of all energetic systems to phase lock the human unit into its repository of light information, a sphere. It is the absolute quintessential form of sovereignty. The Omni Resonance geometry expresses an exponentially expanding superdense nestings of toroidal hyperspheres. Just as an acorn holds 1,000 forests, each apparent circle energetically defines a sphere. A never-ending nor beginning surface upon which a multitude of hyperspheres are birthed. Each of these spheres birthing in turn a multitude of fractalizing hyperspheres. It is the geometric form and frequency of the universal holography. An alchemical component within the code, it reverberates with the integrity of our photonic and elemental resonance with the sun, the earth, the stars, the galaxies, the eternal continuum. As the alchemical components of the omni-resonant code gain momentum, our bioinformational circuitry system that informs and animates our being gains density and reaches full capacity to absorb, decipher, utilize, and transmit the full spectrum of photonic information. The geometry that expresses each fractal of our full human blueprint prior to genetic modification amalgamates into a sphere that encircles our being. This is our light body matrix. The sphere is the most comprehensive geometric form from which all others are generated. It is the ultimate mathematical imperative that governs every system of growth, every motion in the universe, from atomic bonds to spiraling galaxies. It is the earth on which we live, the eye with which we see, the egg and the seed. This geometry coalesces and creates the cohesion that maps out the language of relationship, the consciousness of creation, the simultaneously all and singular, the form that individualizes from the monad, the Mahagaya Tantra of creation. The sphere reaches full resonant capacity during the final phase of the Omni Resonant Code. This phase was realized in 2018 as the 16th code. It was not until early 2022 that we formally engaged with the final omnipotent version of the full Omni Code for the first time. We were living in Glastonbury in the Shire of Somerset, England, within the embrace of an ancient sacred site with which we were exceptionally familiar, as we had first moved there in 1990 and had returned time and time again. A place of mystery and legend that is widely recognized as one of Earth's most powerful portals. Iniswidren, the Isle of Glass, the Isle of Avalon, well known for its cathedral ruin, its Tor, and 2 exceptional springs. We have always been drawn to live where dynamic Earth meridians create a potent convergence of Earth energies, torsion fields of information, portals created by the interdimensional coalescence between this version of Earth and her transcendent body, her light body, a fractal of the Mahagaya Tantra of creation, embraced within the eternal continuum. On our first arrival in Glastonbury, within a day we had moved into a house on 4 acres. Chalice Lodge sat in a saddle of land between the Tor and Chalice Hill. I had experienced detailed visions of this home several times before leaving Hawaii, and had described them to Jiva. However, I had not entirely appreciated the degree of synchronicities that must have converged to offer us such a rare, potent refuge. It hinted at a conspiracy that would be revealed in the months and years ahead, one that led us through a labyrinth of initiations, culminating under an oak tree in a field by the Tor. Perhaps it had begun before we took one breath upon this planet. Very soon we began to tap into the powerful, unmistakable, multi-dimensional nature of this place, where several worlds collide, and the veils between them are fine. As a woman from a long lineage of Irish heritage, it was the inhabitants of the realm of Aishid that offered a dramatic welcome steeped in warning. It quickly became apparent, should you choose to live within the boundaries of Iniswidren, it was wise to recognize that the enchanting beauty of the Feywild was both drenched in light and shadow, especially if you were there with a will and a purpose. Our first winter, the melancholy Celtic dreamtime was to me a living poetry, as the black, bare branches offered runes against the cold white sky. Ravens called down the halls of time, and crows flew in patterns that might at first seem beyond logic, but in lucid states of wonder found in the cold, silent stillness were seen as templates of eloquent meaning. Unfortunately, it was not our fate to keep a low profile amongst the spells, the sorcery that swirled within this powerful portal. For within a few months we fell into an extraordinary position within a community we barely knew. Through a series of outrageous alignments, we became guardians of another sacred site, the White Spring. This spring was not separate from the Isle of Glass, for she flowed from the base of the Tor since time out of memory. The spring existed long before any of us were able to form the words we used to name her. Every day, 17,000 gallons flowed through and down into the small town of Glastonbury. The blood of the land, water holds memory like no other element. These waters gestated in the womb of the mother beneath the Tor, gathering information from every stone and starlit night before it rose to the surface. The spring came up into an old stone building that resembled a small castle that had been built around it. Our term as guardians came to a close in early 2000, by which time we had learned of sacred geometry, morphic resonance, of water's ability to be easily imbued by frequencies. So much was gained and lost, hard lessons learned, initiations barely passed, codes realized. We left Glastonbury to travel through several countries over many years, returning almost yearly to share alchemical ceremonies with journeymen and women from all over the planet. Making good a vow made on a mountain, a promise finally fulfilled on the Isle of Avalon, now being shared with you. That morning beneath the oak, with the Omni Resonance geometry between us, as I was speaking the code, I looked up at Jiva and noticed my environment had become more vibrant. The grass around me seemed glazed with honey-like amber light, beneath which were darker opalescent hues of emerald and turquoise, emitting facets of crystalline color in the sunlight. Holding space above us was the sheltering oak, the wisdom tree. I looked back at the last page of the code, which was now a kaleidoscope of patterns. Glancing again at Jiva, "I can't read," I told him. He asked if I was too cold. Did I want to go home? "No, I can't read the words," I replied. At this point I understood I was on this ride without him. Everything around me exploded into fractal, vortexing portals of light geometry, with Jiva at the center. As I turned from him to observe my wider environment, the landscape had dramatically begun to fractalize, until at the center of my perception, an entrance, a portal opened. Within seconds, I was looking down a corridor of alternate versions of the same landscape. Each one was manifesting an alternate reality of the one I was in. The tunnel culminated into what I recognized as the manifestation of this our Earth in her transcendent form. I knew this because I had experienced it many years ago on Green Mountain in Hawaii, where we spontaneously accessed the 19.5 meridian portal. This transcendent Earth was embraced within the true continuum, the constant, the eternal. From the many years of working with this model, I knew that I had entered a state in which the alembic crucible formed by my pituitary hypothalamus and pineal was being hyper-energized by an inflow of the circuitry that was delivering source code data into this complex. These brain circuits deliver electromagnetic data that sustains and regulates the receptivity of a neuron to the complexity of external input, expanding or contracting the bandwidth of cortical networks and cognitive function, depending on the degree of source code these organs are able to decipher. The delivery system of circuitry expands the bandwidth in accordance with the reconnection and integration of the entire human biocomputational system. It was clear that this complex was metabolizing endogenous compounds of biosignaling elixirs that opened concentric thresholds of insight that culminated and coalesced into the constant, the eternal continuum. No doubt due to the incalculable amount of circuitry that had been connected through frequent exposure to the full alchemy of the Omni code. The area in which my brain stem entered my spinal column was pulsing, as electromagnetic information gathered from the many reconnected circuits in my brain were activating my central nervous system, sending further messages into my endocrine system and DNA as my entire biocomputational system was being infused with source code data. This event confirming completion of the code to its ultimate capacity. How else could that have been revealed to us other than to go through the complete experience of transcendence? Importantly, it was also displaying the flow of electromagnetic energy that revealed the biomechanisms set in motion by the alchemy of the code, various symbiotic holonomic systems that re-establish the full infrastructure that informs, generates, and ignites the light-body matrix to unify as the superstructure of the human light vehicle. The morphing and accumulating complexity of the geometric process of participating in and observing the workings of transcendence from the perception of both the observer and the observed. In this event, it was crucial that Jiva remain the observer. His knowledge of geometry had expanded throughout the years to give him a comprehensive body of information and insight that connected geometry to the process of transcendence. The restoration of the full human blueprint, the quantum appreciation that there is no separation between spirit and matter, the same energy in different stages of expression. At the point at which I had told Jiva the code was no longer decipherable, he was seeing through my third eye into my head and saw moving slowly out of my pineal was a cube octahedron, also known as an iconic terraprana sphere, the center of the heart star. The heart star being the central fractal of the human holonomic network of codified energy, the terminus for the inflow of source code data and the outflow of cognizant feedback. It was evident to Jiva that the cube octahedron, as it emerged from my pineal, was the initiator of the restoration of the full geometric light language that forms the human light body. the cube octahedron morphed into the Gaia Terra Prana sphere, which then began to expand and multiply into layers and layers that moved through each window of each cube octahedron. As they did so, they were merging with my consciousness as it expanded out until my entire head blazed into pulsing light. It was then that Jiva saw that the initial hypercube octahedron was creating a hybrid piece of geometry as it began to amalgamate with other geometries and expand to encircle my being. Before the first hybrid geometry began to engage and meld into denser nestings of geometries, Jiva was able to commit its genesis and final form to memory, and later created it as a manifest form, which is now an alchemical component within the Omni code. As the nesting of geometries continued, the light language of my blueprint exponentially amalgamated and began sharing data into a holographic weave of luminous coherence. At this point, Jiva saw the Omni Resonance geometry begin to pulsate. This action drew its data-sharing system through everything around me, creating spheres of dynamic energy, blossoming and embracing everything, as if pebbles had been dropped into a pond, except that they were not creating rings, but spheres, spheres that pulse out to encompass and merge with each other and the entire landscape, creating interference patterns and circulating information. Waveforms connecting and sharing geometric spheres that began to spin into hypervortex substructures. This was the matrix we had experienced on Green Mountain. At that time, what we felt was the interactive, interconnecting exchange of information. The geometric network Jiva was now witnessing was revealing the structure and creation of the manifestation that occurs between spirit and matter through consciousness. As Jiva looked on, my circuitry was continuing to coalesce, consolidating into an ever more dense sphere of nesting geometries, formulating a symbiotic cohesion, revitalizing all energy systems that run the bioinformational computation of the complete human holonom, the vehicle that ultimately allowed me to let go of this dualistic paradigm. As the observer, Jiva understood what was being asked of me and had total faith in my ability. This had happened suddenly and without warning. For 30 years we had taught this system, had held this space through faith. My experience of it now was from the dynamic, and I knew I was world bridging. I was able to let go of the constraints that held me in this mutant, dualistic paradigm. I had experienced the Omni Resonant code many times, and by now had established pathways of integration. It was utterly apparent that this event had been instigated by the alchemy of the Omni Resonant code, and that the code is an endogenous MAO inhibitor. The code allows for the metabolization of Amrita, the awakener, the elixir that brings back to life the original immortal blueprint that is the human geometric light body matrix.